Most people install wheel spacers completely wrong. I installed spacers last year, and here's everything I learned, including what I regret. So what are wheel spacers, and why do they exist? To keep it short and simple, wheel spacers are basically just machined pieces of aluminum that are mounted between your wheel and brake rotor to help change the offset. And if you don't know what offset is basically the center of the wheel in relation to the mounting point. So a less aggressive offset goes deeper into the car, while a more aggressive offset pushes it out further from the car. And there's two ways spacers can be aligned. They're either hub-centric or lug-centric. Again, keeping it simple, if they're hub-centric, they basically just align to the hub of your wheel. Versus if they're lug-centric, they align with the lugs of your wheel. And now you may be asking, well, is there just one type of wheel spacer? Because I for sure didn't know this. And the answer is no, there is definitely not just one type of wheel spacer. You have slip-ons, you have bolt-ons, you have hub-centric, and you have conversion spacers. Now, the ones I personally have are from KSP Performance on Amazon, which had good reviews, and they aligned with the specs I wanted to use for my car. Here are the specs for the ones I ordered. They were 25mm spacers with a 70.5mm hub bore, M14 by 1.5 thread pitch, and most importantly, it was made for the S550 Mustangs. And I may have these 1-inch or 25mm spacers, but you may need a 5mm spacer or a 2-inch spacer. It really just depends on your own personal use case. They're made in different thicknesses depending on what you're going to use them for. Sometimes you just need a little bit more space for your big brake kit so the wheel doesn't hit it. Or if you're a big cool truck guy, maybe you just want a wider stance for your setup. The real thing you gotta keep in mind is your offset math. You gotta understand where your wheel is being mounted in proportion to the mounting point. Sometimes your wheel may already have a 45mm offset, but with a 20mm spacer, it goes back and becomes a 25mm offset. But now the big question, are they safe? Realistically, yes, they're very safe. Especially if they're slip-ons or you just mounted them correctly. The only time you really have to worry about them is if you're using bolt-ons like I did, and you have to make sure every part is torqued to spec. But besides that, they're completely safe. It just takes a lot of knowledge to get them right the first time. And once they're installed, you're basically ready to go. But if you need a little bit more help, well, here's a list that I made of pros and cons for wheel spacers. So the pros, they can increase your track width for grip. It's not a big difference, but it's noticeable. A lot of the times they're used by drifters to avoid rubbing and understeering. They can show significant difference for vehicle aesthetics. They can help correct offset, good for a wide body kit. As I said earlier, they can help with big brake clearance issues, and they can give you a more accessible bolt pattern that your car may not already have. And for the cons, it can be difficult to find the right specs, especially with understanding offset math. If you're using bolt-ons, you can have multiple failure points, or even for the conversion ones. Some people say that it increases your leverage arm on your wheel bearing, which creates extra load. And sure, that might be true, but it's not a huge difference. Maybe you'll just replace your bearings at 9 years instead of 10. And lastly, if you get bare aluminum, they probably will degrade faster, and that's why most people say always get anodized. But you may be asking, why did I install them? And honestly, that's a valid question. Originally, I really just installed them for the aesthetics. At the time, I had just lowered my car, and my brand new coilovers had not only given me extra camber in the back, but it seemed to have just pushed in the wheels a lot more than I would have liked. And I wanted a more aggressive, wider stance, but without the budget for big new wheels, I was stuck with finding a more creative solution. Especially since my whole goal was to get that nice aggressive look, right where it just sticks out a little bit, and you know what I mean. So within a couple days, I was like, let's do it. I did my research, found a good product that already had multiple reviews, and went ahead and clicked buy. Okay guys, let's pause. I want to go ahead and tell you a little bit about my personal favorite detailing products that I definitely recommend you should try. I like to stay pretty consistent with my detailing products. I have my go-to pressure washer, which I've been using for a couple of years now. It's the Adams Polishes Active Pressure Washer 2.0. I have my basic car detailing kit, which comes with a bunch of things like sponges, brushes, you can name it. Then when we get into the soap I use, I like to go with this Chemical Guys Hydro Sud Ceramic. It's super foamy and I love it, especially paired with this Rain Kobo foam cannon. Now, once you're done washing the car, you want to make sure you grab yourself a good towel. This black line towel is honestly my favorite towel I've used to this day. Once you're done with that, you want to make sure you get your interior right with this Chemical Guys Total Interior Cleaner. And the last 3 things I personally use is this DIY ceramic spray. Make sure and seal up your car for a nice clean finish. Then you have your TS2 touchless tire shine. I personally really like this one because it makes my tires extra shiny. For this last one, which is the spray away glass cleaner, if you know, you know. You just spray it on, it foams up, and then you clean it off. Simple as that. But alright guys, let's go ahead and get back to the video. Anyways, once I installed them, they look great. It's exactly what I wanted, and it's just what I thought it would do for my car. It checked off all the boxes. But then, reality set in. At this point, I had them on for a few months, but it was time to make a decision. Do I need to keep them in, or is it time to take them out? And this is where my lack of knowledge started to cause some problems. And it sucked, because for the first few months, I made sure I had them on correctly. I made sure to torque them up to spec, re-torque them at a certain mileage, and you know, just do everything I thought I was supposed to be doing. But the real problem wasn't the spacers. Like I said, it was my lack of knowledge of understanding how offsets work, especially since I now had a lowered car. And you know, whenever I lowered it, I used my coilovers and brought it down the whole 2 inches. You know, I wanted that thing low. But I ended up having to take out the front 2 spacers because they were rubbing so bad against my wheel well covers that they were just being ripped apart and, you know, causing extra wear and tear to my actual tires. And at some points when I hit an uneven road or a little bump, I could definitely hear it hitting the actual body panels of my car, and I was like, that's not good. It's time to figure out a solution or just take them out completely and prevent any further damage. And you know, I did end up taking them out. I ended up selling them on Marketplace for like 30 bucks, like just the front 2. I kept the back 2, but honestly, I did a little bit of research. I probably would have been fine if I just got 15mm spacers for the front, but honestly, I'm okay with that right now. And so I realized to fix this, I should have had to account for now having the lower car, putting my wheel well covers closer to the wheels themselves. So the extra 10mm instead of using like a 15mm spacer really made it just bump and hit. But honestly guys, for being a random pair I found off of Amazon with just a couple days of research, they worked great. I never seemed to have any vibration issues. And I had my alignment done shortly after that because I had also recently did my coilovers. So you know, I was sitting nice. But yeah, a quick little side note, don't forget to get an alignment, especially after lowering your car, putting new camber, and getting wheel spacers. You want to make sure you're all nice and ready for the road. But now let's get into the install. How did I install my wheel spacers? So I haven't seen a ton of crazy install videos on these. Granted, they are pretty straightforward, but let me give you a quick rundown on how I did my install. So to start, I want you to know, yes, I'm using the bolt-ons. First thing you have to do is remove your wheel. From there, you're gonna have to align your spacers to the wheel studs or wheel lugs, whatever. Then you're gonna use the provided lug nuts to tighten down the new spacers to the brake rotor. And remember, always to spec. And now you're gonna align your wheels to the studs on the wheel spacers and finally tighten them down again to spec, which should come in the documentation straight from the manufacturer. And a couple things that I didn't do, most mechanics definitely recommend, is to use a wire brush to clean the back of the wheel hub and the front of the brake rotor, as well as use some anti-seize whenever you're putting on your wheel spacers. That way you don't have any problems in the future. That way you have a nice, simple install. But now let's talk about the before and after, because like I said earlier, you could definitely see a difference. Before, with the lowered car, the pushing wheels, you know, the car was just looking a little sad. It was not looking good. I mean, the lowered car was cool and all, but the wheels, especially them being stock, just didn't do it for me. And with the wheel spacers, it looked more aggressive on the back, on the sides, on the front. You know, it poked out a little bit, and it just looked great. They really completed that lowered look for me. And as far as handling and ride quality, you know, besides the rubbing from installing them on the front tires, my car and its handling felt great. I had no complaints. Now, should you buy spacers? Well, that depends. Do you need a little extra room for brakes, or even have the room under your car to go wider? Or are you like me and just going for aesthetics? If it's for functionality or corrective issues, like for your brakes or offset issues, then yeah, it's a perfect solution for you. And if you're like me, you just wanted a clean, nice little aesthetic upgrade, then sure, why not? Give it a shot, put the 25mm on the back, maybe get some 15mm on the front, let me know how that works, and you'll have a nice looking ride on your hands. And if you don't know, you can always just take a ruler, put it to the top of the tire, from the wheel to the fender, to see how much of that fender gap you have to fill. That way you don't get any extra rubbing. And I personally really like them on my car, hence why they're still on there to this day. And obviously I'm lowered on some coilovers, you know, the BC Racing coilovers. I don't even know if I mentioned that, but you know, that's for another video.